From a man who survived being shot, stabbed, and left for dead, and still completed his mission before asking for help, to a man who threw himself onto a grenade so the 3 SEALs standing next to him could walk away, to the man who built the deadliest special operations force in American history after his own military told him it couldn't be done. These are the 5 deadliest Navy SEALs who ever lived. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why their names deserve to be remembered. Entry 1. Roy Boehm. Roy Boehm didn't join an elite unit, he built one. In 1961, the United States military did not have a dedicated maritime special operations force. What it had was a directive from President Kennedy to create one, and a single man tasked with making it happen from scratch, with no budget, no blueprint, and no guarantee that anyone in the Navy brass actually wanted it to succeed. That man was Roy Boehm. And the obstacles in front of him were almost as dangerous as anything he would later face in combat. His own commanders fought him at every step. Equipment requests were denied. Training facilities were unavailable. Senior officers who considered special operations a waste of resources blocked him through official channels and unofficial ones. Boehm went around them, through them, and occasionally over them in ways that should have ended his career multiple times. He had grown up hard, enlisted in the Navy at 17 during World War II, and served in combat before most men his age had finished high school. By the time Kennedy's directive landed on his desk, he had already spent 15 years learning exactly how much the military bureaucracy could slow down a man with a clear idea and a short timeline. He decided not to let it. He recruited the first 50 men personally. He designed their training. He sourced their equipment through channels that his superiors preferred not to ask too many questions about. And on January 1st, 1962, against every prediction made by every officer who had told him it was impossible, Naval Special Warfare Group 1 stood up for the first time. The Navy SEALs existed because Roy Boehm decided they would. Every SEAL who has ever served since, every mission, every Medal of Honor, every life saved in combat across 6 decades, traces back to one stubborn man who refused to accept that the thing his country needed could not be built. But the man coming up next on this list didn't build anything. He destroyed everything the enemy put in front of him, and he did it on one leg. Entry number 2, Bob Kerrey. Bob Kerrey lost part of his right leg on a mission in Vietnam in March 1969. He finished the mission anyway. His SEAL team had been inserted onto a small island called Nha Trang to eliminate a Viet Cong political cadre. They moved in at night through terrain that offered no cover and reached their objective position on a rocky ledge above the enemy location. What happened next happened fast. A grenade. An explosion. Kerrey on the ground with his right leg shattered below the knee, his team still in contact with the enemy and nowhere near extraction. He made a decision. He told his men to continue the mission. While his teammates pushed through to the objective, Kerrey directed the action from the ledge, controlling the fire, coordinating the movement, giving orders with the calm of a man who had decided the outcome before the grenade went off. By the time the mission was complete, the cadre had been eliminated and his team was ready for extraction. Kerrey was extracted with his leg gone below the knee. He was awarded the medal. What the citation does not fully capture is what it actually takes to lead men through a combat mission from the ground, while bleeding out from a wound that would have ended most men the moment it happened. To put the mission and the men above the physical reality of what your body is telling you. Kerrey survived that night because his men refused to leave him, and because he refused to stop leading them. He went on to serve as Governor of Nebraska and United States Senator, carrying the Medal of Honor and the leg he lost on that island with equal quiet dignity for the rest of his life. But what Kerrey endured on that ledge in Vietnam was nothing compared to what the next man on this list walked into voluntarily. He didn't lose a leg. He almost lost everything, and he went back for more. Pattern reveal. Halfway point. Stop for a moment. Look at every man we have covered so far. Boehm built something nobody believed in against every obstacle his own military put in front of him. Kerrey led a mission from the ground with his leg blown apart rather than give the order to pull back. Not one of these men was the biggest in the room. Not one of them was operating in ideal conditions. Every single one of them reached a moment where the mission was effectively over, and chose to finish it anyway. That is not something the Navy teaches. That is something a man either has or he does not. And the three men coming up in the second half of this video had it in quantities that are genuinely difficult to explain. Entry 3. Michael Thornton. Michael Thornton went back into enemy territory to recover a man who was already dead. Except the man wasn't dead. In October 1972, Thornton was operating as part of a 5-man SEAL team, conducting a reconnaissance mission along the North Vietnamese coastline. The team was inserted by sea and moved inland, directly into a force of enemy soldiers vastly larger than any intelligence had suggested. They were surrounded almost immediately and fighting their way back toward the water. During the withdrawal, Thornton heard over the radio that his team leader, Lieutenant Tom Norris, already a Medal of Honor recipient, had been shot in the head and was down. The standard calculation in that situation is brutal but clear. A man shot in the head in the middle of a firefight while surrounded by enemy forces is not a rescue. He is a recovery. The living take priority over the dead. You move toward extraction. Thornton ran back into the firefight. He fought through the enemy soldiers between him and Norris, reached him, discovered that Norris was alive but unconscious and critically wounded, picked him up and carried him nearly 2 miles back to the water under continuous fire. He swam with Norris for over 2 hours in the South China Sea, holding the unconscious man above water until a Navy vessel reached them. Tom Norris survived. He lost his left eye and required years of reconstructive surgery. He later served as an FBI agent and by any measure lived a full life after the night Thornton carried him out of North Vietnam. Thornton was awarded the Medal of Honor. He is one of the very few men in American history to receive the Medal of Honor for saving the life of another Medal of Honor recipient. Tom Norris was alive because Michael Thornton decided that the radio report was wrong. What Thornton did that night required a man to run towards something every instinct said to run away from. The next man on this list did the same thing, except he did it in 2 seconds flat and he never came home. Entry 4. Chris Kyle. Chris Kyle grew up on a ranch in Texas and spent his childhood hunting and riding horses. He became the most lethal sniper in American military history. Kyle served 4 tours in Iraq between 2003 and 2009. His confirmed kill count reached 160, the highest of any American military sniper in history. The military gave him the nickname The Legend. Iraqi insurgents called him the Devil of Ramadi and put a bounty of $80,000 on his head. He operated in some of the most dangerous urban environments of the Iraq War: Fallujah, Ramadi, Sadr City, providing overwatch for Marine and Army units moving through streets that had been specifically designed by insurgents to funnel American forces into kill zones. From rooftops and windows hundreds of yards away, Kyle identified threats before they became casualties and eliminated them with a precision that saved an incalculable number of American lives. His longest confirmed kill was 2,100 yards, just over 1.25 miles. A shot made under combat conditions with a bullet that took over 2 seconds to reach its target. There is one thing about Kyle that the numbers do not capture. He came home from 4 tours of Iraq and spent years working with veterans suffering from PTSD, taking men to gun ranges, fishing trips, outdoor activities that gave them something to hold on to. He was killed on February 2nd, 2013, at a shooting range in Texas by a veteran he was trying to help. He was 38 years old. The last man on this list also died young, but he made his choice in 2 seconds in the middle of a street in Ramadi, and he knew exactly what he was doing when he made it. Entry 5. Mike Monsoor. On September 29, 2006, in Ramadi, Iraq, a grenade landed on the roof of a building where Mike Monsoor and 3 other SEALs were positioned. Monsoor was the only one close enough to the exit to escape. He had approximately 2 seconds to make a decision. He threw himself onto the grenade. The explosion killed him. The 3 SEALs standing nearby survived with minor injuries. Michael Monsoor was 25 years old. He had been in the Navy SEALs for 2 years. He had deployed to Iraq and served with distinction in some of the most contested urban terrain of the war. By every account of the men who served with him, he was exactly the kind of man the SEALs were designed to produce: calm under pressure, competent in the field, and deeply committed to the men beside him. None of that explains 2 seconds. 2 seconds is not enough time for training to kick in. It is not enough time for doctrine or instinct or any of the things the military spends years building into a man. 2 seconds is enough time for one thing only: a decision about what matters most. Monsoor had already made that decision before the grenade landed. He was awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously. A Navy destroyer was named after him. His parents accepted his Medal of Honor from President George W. Bush at the White House in April 2008. The 3 men who lived because of what he did in those 2 seconds attended his funeral and lined the walkway as his casket passed. One by one they removed their SEAL tridents, the gold pin worn by every qualified SEAL, and pressed them into the wood of his casket. By the time he reached the hearse, the casket was covered in gold. Pattern. Reveal. Close 5 men. 5 different wars. 5 completely different stories. But look at what connects them. Boehm built something when everyone said it couldn't be built. Kerrey led his men when he had no leg to stand on. Thornton ran back into a firefight for a man the radio said was already gone. Kyle spent his years after war trying to save the men that combat had broken. And Monsoor made a decision in 2 seconds that most men could not make in a lifetime. Not one of them waited for conditions to improve. Not one of them calculated whether the outcome was worth the cost. Every single man on this list reached the moment where the only move left was the one nobody could ask them to make, and they made it anyway. That is what made them SEALs. That is what made them the deadliest. And that is why their names belong in this conversation long after everything else about these wars has been forgotten. CTA next week. One man spent 20 days alone behind enemy lines with an entire army hunting him by name. They never found him. Subscribe. You won't want to miss this.